Picture this. Someone just insulted you in front of other people. Your chest is tight, your face is hot. Every part of your body is telling you to fire back, to defend yourself, to win this. And in that exact second when the pressure to react is at its highest, the most powerful man in the Roman Empire would have said nothing at all. Marcus Aurelius had one sentence he returned to every time someone tried to provoke him. One sentence, and it disarmed people more completely than any comeback ever could. By the end of this video, you'll have that sentence, and you'll understand exactly why it works. Stay with me. Welcome back to Modern Stoicism. Today we're going into one of the most practically useful things this philosophy ever produced. Not a framework for death or fate, but a tool for the moment someone tries to get under your skin. The kind of tool that, once you understand it, makes you genuinely harder to shake. Let's begin with something that most people never stop to notice. Picture the last time someone provoked you. A coworker making a cutting remark in a meeting, a family member landing a comment designed to sting, and they knew exactly where to aim it. A stranger online typing something whose sole purpose was to make your blood move faster. Ask yourself honestly, what did they actually want from you? Not information, not a genuine debate. They wanted a reaction. They wanted to watch your composure crack, because in that crack they find something they were looking for. Proof that they reached something inside you that you should be controlling yourself. Your anger is the evidence they came for. And here's the part worth sitting with. Every time you respond with a sharp comeback, raised volume, or visible heat, you are not winning. You are paying the toll they set for you. You are handing them exactly what they came to collect. Epictetus understood this from a position almost none of us will ever face. Picture him as a young man, owned by another human being, with no legal control over his own body, his location, or his daily circumstances. He had years of living in conditions where other people's cruelty was not just an occasional inconvenience, but a basic feature of daily existence. And from inside those conditions, he wrote some of the most clarifying words in the history of philosophy. We suffer not from the things that happen to us, but from our judgment about those things. Read that again slowly. It wasn't the insult that actually wounded you. It was the meaning you assigned to it in the half second after it landed. If a man who had nothing, no freedom, no body that was legally his own, could master this, then what does it say about the power we are giving away over a comment from a coworker, a relative who has been making the same joke for 15 years, a stranger on the internet who has never met us? It says we've been playing the wrong game. We've been treating provocation like a battle we need to win, when really it is a test we need to pass. And the test is never about who has the sharper tongue. It's about who walks away with their peace intact. Here it is, recorded in his private journal, a journal Marcus Aurelius never intended anyone else to read, which is precisely why we can trust it as genuine rather than performance. He wrote, "If anyone can refute me, show me I'm making a mistake or looking at things from the wrong perspective, I'll gladly change. It's the truth I'm after, and the truth never harmed anyone." Read it again, slowly, because the power here is easy to miss on a first pass. This is not a clever comeback. It's not designed to humiliate anyone. It's not even really aimed at the other person at all. It's a sentence Marcus said to himself, internally, before he ever opened his mouth. And what it does is extraordinary. It strips the provocation of its power before any response is even given. Here's why. When someone provokes you, they're hoping you'll treat their words as an attack on your identity, something that requires immediate defense. But Marcus reframed every insult, every jab, every unfair criticism as simply information. Possibly true, possibly false. If true, it's useful. Now he knows something he didn't before. If false, it costs him nothing, because he never agreed to be wounded by something untrue. Picture a family gathering. Your uncle, the one who has been making the same comment for a decade, lands his usual line about your career choices. Something like, "Still doing that little hobby of yours? Or did you finally get a real job?" The old response is to defend, to list achievements, to prove something. But picture a different version. You simply think, if there's truth in this, I should examine it. If there isn't, his words don't define me. Only my reaction does. And then, calmly, without a trace of heat, you say something like, "What makes you say that?" Or simply, "Interesting." Watch what happens in the room. He came prepared for a fight. You didn't show up to one. There's nothing for him to push against. The energy he was counting on to escalate the moment simply isn't there. Most provocateurs, faced with this, deflate almost immediately, because suddenly their provocation is exposed for exactly what it was, an attempt to extract a reaction, failing in plain sight. This is what Stoic calm actually was, not weakness, not a doormat absorbing punishment. The single most disarming weapon available to a human being. Anger validates the attacker. Calm questions dismantle them. Seneca described anger as a kind of temporary madness, a state in which we hand control of our reasoning faculty entirely to whatever provoked us. He wrote that no emotion is more eager to display its full force, and none more in need of being held back, because anger's most dangerous trick is convincing you its power, while it's actually making you the most predictable, most controllable version of yourself. The angrier you get, the more predictable you become. The provocateur learns which buttons work because you've shown them where the buttons are. Calm, by contrast, is unreadable. Calm gives them nothing to map. Now let's move away from the family dinner table and talk about what this looks like when the stakes are genuinely high. Because the Stoics didn't just develop these ideas for mild social irritations. They were tested against some of the most extreme provocations in recorded history. Picture Marcus Aurelius in 175 AD, away from Rome, managing a health crisis so severe that false rumors of his own death had spread across the empire. And while he was away, while he was managing a crisis he hadn't chosen and hadn't caused, one of his most trusted generals, Avidius Cassius, declared himself emperor. Picture what that actually means. This was a man Marcus had personally elevated, a man he had trusted with command of entire legions, a man whose career, whose entire position of power, existed because Marcus had chosen to place him there. And the moment he believed Marcus might be dying, he moved to seize the throne. This is provocation on a scale almost none of us will ever face. Not a comment at a dinner table, not a slight in a meeting, a betrayal soaked in ambition, executed by someone who owed everything to the man he was trying to replace. And how did Marcus respond? Historical accounts tell us that when news of the revolt reached him, he didn't explode in fury. He didn't issue immediate orders for brutal retaliation. He reportedly told his soldiers and advisors that he hoped to have the chance to look Cassius in the eye and simply ask why, and then offer him mercy. He was recorded saying he wished no one to be killed in the affair if it could possibly be avoided, and that he grieved the necessity of civil conflict more than he feared any threat to his own throne. Before Marcus could even act on this, Cassius was killed by his own soldiers, perhaps sensing which way things were moving. And when Cassius's head was brought to Marcus as a kind of trophy, the ultimate symbolic provocation, an invitation to celebrate vengeance delivered, Marcus refused to look at it. He ordered it buried. He denied the soldiers who brought it any reward. He extended clemency to Cassius's family and to the cities that had supported the rebellion. Picture what that level of restraint actually requires. This was not a man incapable of anger. This was not a man without the military power to level entire cities as an example. He commanded the most powerful force on earth. He had every justification, every resource, and every opportunity to make certain nobody would dare try this again. He chose not to. And what did that choice accomplish? If Marcus had executed everyone connected to the rebellion, he would have confirmed the fear that Roman emperors ruled through vengeance rather than justice. He would have spent his moral authority on a moment of satisfaction. By choosing restraint, he did something far more lasting. He made Cassius's rebellion look small and petty in comparison to the response it received. History remembers Cassius as a footnote. History remembers Marcus's mercy as one of the defining acts of his character. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, I'm never going to face a military rebellion. And you're right, but the mechanism is identical whether the scale is an empire or an email. Someone wrongs you, the nervous system screams for retaliation, and in that moment, you have the exact same choice Marcus had. React in a way that feels satisfying for 10 seconds, or respond in a way that serves who you actually want to be for the rest of your life. Before we go further, I want to clear up the single biggest misconception people bring to this philosophy, because if we don't, everything we're building today can be misapplied. Stoicism is not about suppressing your emotions. It is not about becoming emotionally vacant, letting people treat you however they want, smiling through abuse because you've trained yourself not to feel anything. That version of Stoicism is a cartoon, and it's genuinely harmful because it leads people to bottle legitimate anger until it either explodes destructively or turns inward as resentment. The actual Stoic position is far more precise. The goal is not to feel nothing. The goal is to not let the feeling make your decisions for you. There is an important distinction the Stoics drew between what they called the first movements of emotion, the involuntary jolt of anger, hurt, or fear that arises the instant something happens, and what you choose to do with that jolt in the moment that follows. Seneca was explicit about this. He acknowledged that even the wisest person will feel their pulse quicken, their face flush, their stomach tighten when insulted or threatened. That physical reaction is not a moral failing. It's simply what it means to have a nervous system. The philosophy lives entirely in what happens next. Do you let that jolt write the script for your next 60 seconds? Or do you let it pass through you, observe it, and then choose from reason rather than reflex? Epictetus himself, despite everything he wrote about restraint, was famously blunt when correcting his students. He didn't pretend insults didn't happen. He didn't let injustice pass unnamed. What he refused to do was let his reaction to injustice be dictated by rage rather than clarity. Picture the difference between someone who says, calmly, with steady eye contact, "What you just said wasn't fair, and here's why," and someone who screams the exact same content with shaking hands and a red face. The words might be identical. The first version lands as unshakable confidence. The second version reads as someone who lost control of themselves, and people instinctively discount it even when the underlying point is completely valid. Stoic calm doesn't ask you to disappear. It asks you to show up with so much command over yourself that nobody can manipulate you into a version of yourself you don't respect. And sometimes, the most stoic response is not silence at all. It's one calm, precisely chosen sentence that states a boundary without a trace of emotional bleed. Things like, "That's not something I'm going to accept. I think you know that's not accurate. We can talk again when this is calmer." Notice what all of these share. They're short, they're declarative, they don't ask permission, they don't over-explain, they don't escalate. They close a door rather than opening 10 new ones for argument. This is what Marcus's sentence was really teaching. Not eternal silence, but a deliberate pause that lets you choose precision over explosion. Here's something almost nobody tells you about composure under pressure. It is not a personality trait some people are simply born with, while others aren't. It is a skill, and like every skill, it can be trained, specifically through a practice the Stoics called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. The idea is deceptively simple. Instead of waiting for provocation to catch you off guard, you deliberately imagine it in advance, in detail, while you're calm, so that when it actually arrives, you're not improvising your reaction under pressure for the first time. You've already rehearsed it. Picture why this works on a purely practical level. The reason provocation hits so hard is partly because of its surprise. Your nervous system treats the shock itself as a threat, layered on top of whatever was actually said. But if you've already mentally walked through the scenario, if some version of, "What would I do if my colleague took credit for my work in front of the team," has already played out in your mind, Then when it actually happens, you recognize the shape of the moment. You're not starting from zero. You're executing something you've already considered. Here's a concrete way to actually do this. Tonight, before you sleep, take 5 quiet minutes. Think of the person or situation most likely to provoke you in the coming days. Maybe it's a specific relative at an upcoming gathering who always lands in the same tender spot. Maybe it's a pattern with a coworker that's been repeating for months. Picture the scene in specific detail. What will they likely say? What's the sharpest version of it? And then, this is the crucial part, mentally rehearse your calm response. Not a satisfying, furious response, the short, level, undefended one. Picture yourself delivering it evenly. Picture their reaction when you don't take the bait. Picture yourself walking away with your composure completely intact. This is not negative thinking. There is an important difference between anxious rumination, which spirals without purpose and simply generates dread, and premeditation, which has a precise goal, stripping the shock and fear out of a future moment so that when it arrives, you already feel familiar with it. Marcus Aurelius did a version of this every single morning. At the opening of Book 2 of his Meditations, he wrote that he would remind himself each day that he would encounter difficult people who would be ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, jealous. And rather than letting this breed cynicism or dread, he used it to immunize himself. By the time actual rudeness or provocation arrived, it wasn't a shock to his system. He'd already accounted for it. He'd already decided, hours earlier, who he was going to be in that moment. Picture how different that is from the way most of us approach our days. Most people wake up hoping nothing difficult happens, and then feel blindsided and destabilized the moment something does. Marcus woke up expecting difficulty, which meant that when difficulty arrived, it found him already standing in the posture of someone who had decided how to respond. Try this genuinely this week. Pick one relationship or situation that regularly provokes you. Spend a few minutes rehearsing your calm response before you're ever in the moment. You will be surprised at how different it feels when the actual provocation arrives and some part of you quietly recognizes, I've already been here. I already know what I'm going to do. Let's be honest with each other for a moment, because this is where a lot of advice about Stoicism becomes unhelpful. Even with all of this understanding, even with rehearsal, even with Marcus's sentence ready, sometimes you walk away from a provocation having handled the moment perfectly on the outside, and your insides are still burning for hours afterward. This is normal. This is human. And the Stoics, despite their reputation for icy detachment, had enormous compassion for this experience, because nearly all of them had lived through real loss, real injustice, and real humiliation themselves. Seneca's political enemies exiled him and eventually compelled his death. Epictetus spent years enslaved, likely enduring physical harm that left permanent marks. Marcus Aurelius buried multiple children, faced betrayal from people he had trusted completely, and governed through a plague that killed millions. These were not men insulated from pain, dispensing calm advice from a comfortable distance. They were men who had every reason to become permanently bitter, and who chose deliberately and with visible effort not to. So if the anger lingers in you after a provocation, even after you've handled the moment with outward composure, that doesn't mean you failed. It means you're human, and humans process things on a timeline that isn't always convenient. What the Stoics offer here isn't a way to instantly erase residual anger. It's a way to keep residual anger from compounding into something worse: resentment. Resentment is anger that has set up permanent residence. It's the difference between a bruise that heals and a wound that gets reopened every time you think about the person who caused it. One practice Marcus returned to repeatedly, asking whether the person who provoked you acted from genuine malice or from their own confusion and suffering. He wrote that wrongdoers act the way they do because they don't actually understand what is good. They're operating from a distorted view, mistaking cruelty for strength or insecurity for superiority. This doesn't excuse their behavior. It doesn't mean you owe them immediate forgiveness or should pretend what they did was acceptable. But it does something subtle and useful. It shifts the event from something personal, "This was designed to wound me specifically," to something almost like weather. You don't take a hailstorm personally. You don't lie awake resenting the clouds. You note that the storm happened, take whatever precautions are sensible, and move forward. Here is a practical technique for the lingering anger. Give it a container, not a permanent home. Set aside a specific brief window, maybe 10 minutes that evening, where you allow yourself to fully feel it, even write it down unfiltered if that helps. And when that window closes, deliberately turn your attention elsewhere. This is not suppression. You are not pretending the feeling isn't real. You are simply refusing to give it unlimited access to the rest of your day and the people in your life who had nothing to do with what happened. Here is the deepest truth buried inside everything we've covered today, and I want you to really sit with this one. Every time you respond to provocation with the same energy it was delivered in, insult matched with insult, rage matched with rage, you are not protecting yourself. You are surrendering the one thing that was never actually under threat in the first place, your character. Picture what provocation can actually take from you if you let it. It cannot take your achievements. It cannot take the people who genuinely know you. It cannot rewrite your history or erase your competence. The only thing provocation can ever actually steal is your composure, and it can only steal that with your permission. Marcus Aurelius described the mind that withdraws into itself and finds peace there as being like a fortress. No matter what is happening outside the walls, armies, chaos, betrayal, the full weight of an empire at war, the fortress remains intact as long as you don't open the gates yourself. He wrote that nothing outside the mind can disturb it unless it first disturbs itself. The disturbance comes from within, from our own judgment about what is happening to us. Every time someone tries to provoke you, they are testing whether the gates are open. And every time you respond with calm, with one chosen sentence rather than an explosion, you are not just handling that particular moment better. You are proving to yourself in real time that the fortress holds, that you are, in fact, the kind of person you have been working to become. And this compounds. Every time you choose the calm response over the explosive one, the next provocation becomes slightly easier to meet the same way. You are not just managing a single moment. You are building a fundamentally different relationship with your own emotional reactivity, one encounter at a time. Picture what this does for the people closest to you. The ones who matter most deserve a version of you that isn't hijacked by every passing provocation, that doesn't bring home the residue of a stranger's cruelty and discharge it on the people who had nothing to do with it. Composure under provocation is not just self-protection. It is a gift to everyone in your life who gets to spend time with the version of you that isn't constantly being rewritten by other people's bad behavior. Let's distill everything into what you can actually carry into your next provocation, possibly today. First, provocation is a request for your reaction, not a demand. Nobody can extract anger from you without your cooperation. The moment you truly understand this, every insult loses half its power before it finishes leaving the other person's mouth. Second, you don't need a clever comeback. You need one calm, short, undefended sentence, or often just a pause and a steady look. Marcus's version was a willingness to hear truth and an unwillingness to be moved by anything less. Yours might simply be, "Interesting. We can talk when this is calmer. That's not something I'm going to accept." Level tone, unhurried, finished. Content matters less than composure. Third, staying calm is not the same as staying silent forever or accepting mistreatment. Boundaries delivered with composure are more powerful, not less, than boundaries delivered with rage. Say the hard thing if it needs saying. Just say it standing still. Fourth, rehearse this before you need it. Spend 5 quiet minutes this week picturing the moment most likely to provoke you. Picture your calm response. Picture yourself walking away with the fortress gates closed. Don't let the real provocation be the first time you've thought about how you want to respond. Fifth, when the anger lingers, and sometimes it will, give it a container, not a permanent home. Feel it fully for a defined window, then set it down. You are not obligated to carry today's provocation into tomorrow. 2,000 years after Marcus Aurelius wrote these reminders to himself in a journal he never meant for anyone else to read, words meant only to help him hold himself together under pressure. They are still doing exactly what he needed them to do. Turning a man under the weight of an empire into someone who could be betrayed by a trusted general and still choose mercy over vengeance. You don't need an empire to test this. You just need the next person who tries to get under your skin. And now you have what you need to meet that moment differently than you ever have before. If this video gave you something you can actually use, hit like. It helps this channel keep making content like this. Tell me in the comments, what's the provocation you're walking into next? And how are you planning to meet it? I read every single one, and some of the stories this community shares teach me as much as any ancient text does. Subscribe to Modern Stoicism if you haven't already. We're building something here. A place where 2,000 years of hard-won wisdom gets to do what it was always meant to do. Until next time, stay calm, stay sharp. The fortress only falls if you open the gate.